offseason primer, preview, whatever you want to call it, for the Memphis Grizzlies. Before we start today's video, I want to hear your thoughts down below. What do you think they need to do? They just need another guy. Jaren Jackson Jr. can't be your second scorer, nor can Desmond Bane. Ja Morant needs somebody there. Also, you need to decide if Santi Aldama is getting paid or not. Are you going to sign and trade him? Yeah, I'd like to hear what you guys have to say down below in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button. I just got back from covering the Heat game for Hoops Hype, and my colleague here at Hoops Hype, Mark Deeks, put out a little off-season primer. And the thing is before the Thunder took over the scene as the up-and-coming, or the contenders, the team that people thought was going to be where the Thunder are currently at were the Grizzlies. But they were never able to get there. And on paper, this team's construction around Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is solid. But we thought it was a lot more. But it needs a lot more. They need some help in the bench. Scottie Pippen's awesome. I love him. However, there was a reason why Tomas Isalo came in, and they fired their coach 9 games before the end of the season, and that was regardless of the sweep that was inevitable. It's not to blow up the trio. Obviously, the relative lack of health has played a part of this, but I think it is what they need to do. Removing Marcus Smart's contract from the books help free up some cap flexibility. In theory, you could give Jaren Jackson Jr. a pay bump, and which would in turn increases the chances of him signing an extension before entering unrestricted free agency down the road. However, you got rid of Steven Adams and Jake LaRavia, moved some money, and to me, the biggest thing that you need to figure out is Santi Aldama was a 6th Man of the Year candidate. He's somebody that could get an offer sheet from people. And you need to figure out, are you going to retain your free agents? As you got to decide. He is a guy who can play the 3, the 4, and be a spot center. And one person like myself thinks he's someone who could scale up, that someone might want to go out and get a player of him who's obviously he has some things to grow on the defensive side. So will they resign Santi Aldama? Will they resign Luke Kennard? I think Santi's more of a priority if they were going to resign somebody than Kennard, because shooting you can replace. This is a team that turns the ball over too much. They foul too much. Both of those categories, they rank near the bottom. They are a good rebounding team. They're actually somewhat efficient in field goal percentage, but they didn't put a large volume of shots. They need more shooting in terms of floor spacers. They need more people who don't need the ball. And to me, I think to me, the biggest thing is add more perimeter defense would be huge. But as I've said, if they can find another star, and I know everybody would be like Kevin Durant, is that the guy you should go after? I don't know. But Luke Kennard came back on a 1-year pack. I think floor spacing, if you can get him on a cheap deal, you keep him. Now let's talk about Ja Morant. Ja Morant is a good player, but he's averaged barely 51 games per season across his career. And I know part of the problem is him, and the other half is just sheer bad luck. I think you got to keep Ja Morant because the Grizzlies are a small market team. It's never easy for a small market team to trade a superstar and get back what he's truly valued. And how long will it take for you to find another superstar? And we saw what Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks breakup, a forced breakup, looks like. So you don't want to alienate your fan base. They'll have 12 players rostered. Their salary cap space this season isn't bad. They are a team that I think if you go out and you look at what they have, I think Santi Aldama is going to get the full mid-level exception, $14 million a year. If he leaves, it's probably because somebody gave him $20 million. But if the price climbs too high, you can go ahead and find a free agent that could replace Santi Aldama, which part of the problem, and I heard this on a podcast, the Athletic NBA show said it, what went wrong with the Grizzlies was they let Tyus Jones out the door. They let Kyle Anderson out the door. They let all these veterans out the door, and they replaced them with young guys who ended up in turn not being ready to play. And I'm not saying all of them aren't or are ready, but a lot of them ended up not being ready and not being able to contribute as much as they would have liked. And Memphis is a team that is, has the fourth lowest salary. And to me, or fifth lowest, fourth lowest. So to me, when you look at this, next year, they still have John Conchar, who could be a guy that they flip. And they have Scottie Pippen under the books. They have a lot of guys under the books except for Santi Aldama. And then Jaren Jackson Jr. becomes expiring, so you do want to look into that. But you want to find pieces, and this free agency isn't going to have somebody that's going to be, oh my God, franchise changing. Nah. I think the thing that you're going to have to look around for is some bargain deals. There isn't a big that's going to be available. Miles Turner won't be there. Brook Lopez isn't the answer. Naz Reid isn't going to be available for you. So I have to think that someone like Santi is who you're going to bring back, unless you think bringing in a Bobby Portis, who's a good scorer for a big man. He'll have a good post-up game, spot-up shooting, and a face-up game, give you a six-man off the bench. And is that an upgrade? And then we go over to the trades. And that's what I'm saying is, like, this is an offseason where also, if we mentioned Kevin Durant, that's $50 million. How would you get Kevin Durant without trading any of your good players? I'd assume you first have to do part of it would be a non-simultaneous trade, which means a sign and trade next to another trade. So they're two separate transactions. That way you could do the trade of Santi Aldama. Let's say he gets, maybe you try to get him to do 20. So 10 is technically the amount they're taking back. And then Brandon Clark, that gets you like technically to 22 million. John Conchar, which gets you to 28, almost 30. Would that in theory be enough? I think it would, because you might have to have one or two guys, but is that really the answer? And I don't know if it is, because I think you'd be gutting your depth that you have. So that's where I'm coming from, where instead of trading for a superstar, I think you need to be trading for role players. Kind of how like the Lakers did after they traded for Luka Doncic. They went, beforehand they traded for Dorian Finney-Smith, but they started to actually look for like role players. Or even if you want to say the Knicks, I know Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart and OG Anunoby aren't really what you would consider role players, but same thing with Mitchell Robinson and Deuce McBride. Like, some of these guys would be starters on other teams, and on the Knicks, they're role players. And you got to figure out a way to do that. That's what I'm saying right here is, if you're a Grizzlies fan, that needs to be figured out, how you're bringing in guys like that quality. And a few seasons ago, you were in negotiations to try to bring in both Pascal and OG Anunoby, and those are two guys that you should try to bring in. But none of those guys are going to be available. So that's where I'm at. And I think that's the preview. So going into one thing we didn't talk about right here, and we'll wrap it up with the draft. Grizzlies draft picks. Want to confirm what else we have. I like the guy. We already talked about backup guard. They have the 56th pick. They could stash an international guy, but man, Brandon Clark's someone I would maybe flip. I just don't see, especially if you keep Santi. Draft-wise, they need a wing. Cedric Coward. I kind of like that one. Cedric Coward could work for them. A Markel Sutton would be another. But yeah, that's it. Ciao.